Welcome, everybody, to the Stoned on Sports podcast. My name is Matt. Really happy to be here with you today. We are proud to be sponsored by Rocky's Pizza of Swartz Creek, Michigan. Great pies at a great price. You can find us all over the socials, also at Stoned on Sports podcast, except for Twitter, which is Stoned on Sports 1, and that is Kyle's fault. As always, I'm joined by the acclaimed here, Kyle and Ramey. Ramey, scissor me, daddy ass.
Scissor me. How you doing, Matt? It's been a weird week. The All-Star break kind of passed, and there's not a whole lot going on. I know baseball's getting back into the swing in the second half, and kind of something I'm thinking about for a short. It's getting to that point of the year where you should really start to get excited about what's to come. So we're kind of in the dog days right now, but good week and happy to be on talking to you guys. Kyle, how's it going?
Dude, great. Awesome. Having time of my life. I'm waiting for football still. So bored. I'm defensive, so I'm going to respond to Matt's attack on me that it's my fault. There's a character limit for Twitter, and that's what I can put. So if you'd like to suggest one with the 15 character limit, go right ahead.
SOS podcast.
I thought about that, but it just didn't sound as good because that whole Stoned on Sports part wasn't in it. Like I felt like that needed to be in it. So we can do the SOS podcast. Whatever you want, Matt. Whatever you want.
Feel better? Was that cathartic for you?
Yeah, it was because, there's whatever. I was charged with setting up the socials and managing the socials. I did it to the best of my ability with not having to do that crap before ever done. And except for my own personal ones, but these are all the business ones, and they're slightly different. Anyway,
business.
So just before we got on, the news of D-Hop signing with the Tennessee Titans happened. And that's why we like to talk about these things. Ramey, how do you feel about that? I'll give you 30 seconds to get a thought.
Well, I mean, it's going to make them a lot better and more balanced. It's probably going to put them in the conversation to be contenders for the division title. Not that that's saying much. I still don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they're certainly a lot better. I think it still all rides on Henry if he can have a solid year. And if not a solid year, he has to have a really good year where he's putting up 1,600 yards. But at least they'll be more balanced. They still have to figure out the quarterback long term.
Oh, yeah. I mean, is Ryan Tannehill somebody that cannot lose them games? Matt?
I guess so. Their line isn't that great. You've got Traylon Burks on the other side and a whole lot of nothing.
Westbrook, Akine, somebody else. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce his name.
All right. I'll take your word for it. That's how notable they are.
There you go. There you go.
They've got pretty solid run defense. They had some issues on the back end, but if you can run the ball and stop the run, that'll keep you in most games.
They got pretty good coaching. I have Rabel on my, he's up there for coaches for me in the league. Seems to get his guys to play hard.
He seems to be that mix of a player's coach who's also kind of a hard ass. Like, he's not afraid to get in somebody's face, and it's probably because he was in the league for so long as a player. He's respected that way, but it seems like, this signing kind of proves the point. People want to play for him, so
yeah.
He seems to
go ahead.
He seems to strike that balance, is what I was trying to say. He just doesn't alienate the team, but still figures out a way to motivate them.
Who wins a fight, Vrabel versus Motor City Dan Campbell? I feel like that'd be a good one.
I feel like Vrabel would get him down, but then Dan Campbell would start biting those kneecaps.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
What was the deal or what was the terms of the deal?
2 for 32 with incentives.
Or 2 for 20, 2 for 26 with incentives, I thought, and up to 32. What did I send?
Yeah, it'd be 2 for 32 with the incentives. You hit your incentives, you get 32.
Yeah.
I think it's 15 the first year as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's Jacksonville is dominant.
12 for year one.
No.
With, 12 for year one, can get up to 15 for year one. Total for the deal, 32.
With incentives.
Yeah.
With incentives.
I misunderstood because I think of with incentives like I have to add that after you've already said the 32 instead of saying.
Then I would say
incentives included.
I would say plus incentives if that was the case.
So here's a question just out of nowhere, and it's for my own curiosity. When it comes to salary cap, when you sign a deal with incentives, do you have to treat in terms of the cap do you have to treat it as if they are going to hit all of the incentives?
I have no idea.
And we are back into the division previews. Last week we did the NFC North, of course, talked about our Lions, had our special guest Justin on. This week we're on to the NFC East. How you guys feeling about that division this year?
I think it's going to be a division that is very competitive. In doing some research for said podcast, I realized I knew this, but had forgotten none of the teams in the division finished with a less than 500 record. I don't know that there's a ton that it has been done to put one team head and shoulders above the Eagles, but we'll get into that. I just think it's going to be a really competitive division this year, but I look to see maybe a couple teams take a step back because they kind of everything went right for a couple teams.
I don't think the Giants are as fluky as a lot of people think they were. I think Brian Dable is a hell of a coach, and their gains are legitimate, and I'm actually looking for Daniel Jones to take another step forward this year. You've got the OC change in Dallas, which is obviously going to be a bit different. We'll see more of McCarthy's philosophy as opposed to, what Kellen Moore was doing. Washington is Washington, and, the Eagles are the class of the division.
Well, let's start with the class in the division. The Philadelphia Eagles, first in the division last year, represented the NFC in the Super Bowl. Lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and a hell of a Super Bowl. Schedule-wise, they got a Week 10 bye. 4 or 6 games are on the road. 4 of their first 6 games are on the road. I don't think that matters for them. I think they're going to pretty much steamroll over most of them anyway. But and I'm excited to see what their 2 Georgia stars do that they drafted, Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith.
Don't forget about Keely Ringo.
Yes. Thank you, Ramey.
You're welcome.
But that group there is going to do that defensive front's going to be the strength of that team again this year.
Well, really, it's both sides of that too, because they've got an elite offensive line.
They do. Kelsey, yeah, they do.
They're a team that's really built from the foundation up. Jalen Hurts had an amazing season last year. He missed 2 games due to injury, ran for 760 yards and 13 touchdowns. He actually ran more on the road too, yardage-wise, in 418 to 342, and 8 of his touchdowns came on the road. Speaking of their schedule, 9 of their last 11 games are against playoff teams from last season. That is just an absolutely brutal stretch.
Yeah. Like 9-16.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And like good teams, they got rated as far as their coordinators. Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon are gone. Both head coaches themselves. They promoted Brian Johnson to OC. He's been their quarterbacks coach since 2021. And they brought in Sean Desai. I might be saying his name wrong. He was a Bears defensive coordinator in 2021, and last season he was the Seahawks associate defensive head coach, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, they're still the class of the division. I felt like they had a really good draft. They knew that they needed to continue to bolster that defense, and especially the defensive line, and they did that. Called them the Philadelphia Bulldogs almost. They went Georgia 3 times in the draft. They also drafted Tyler Steen, an offensive tackle, to keep that line depth, the offensive line depth. They just seem like a really, really well-run organization. And I know that's easy to say because they're coming off a Super Bowl, but they do have flexibility. Yeah, correct. A Super Bowl appearance. Yeah. Thank you, Kyle.
No problem.
But it seems like that they're not only ready to compete again this year, but they're set up for the long term in terms of draft picks and financial flexibility. They signed Jalen Hurts to a big contract, but as you guys know, with the salary cap continuing to go up, that contract's not going to be crippling for them, and they're going to be able to supplement the offense with pieces as needed through the draft and free agency, because it really seems like Nick Sirianni's a guy that players want to play for. He just seems really genuine, and I know he kind of in the mold of Dan Campbell. He came off kind of goofy and awkward in a few of his first press conferences, but as the season went on, you could see that the guy can really coach and really cares about his players.
Yeah, he's a hell of a coach. He gets real fired up on the sideline too, celebrating and stuff. So we're seeing NFL film clips and things. I see no reason why Hurts can't even elevate his game even further this year. I think they upgraded at a lot of positions this year, so I think it's as talented as a teammates that he's had. They brought Swift in from the Lions. When healthy, that guy's dangerous as fuck.
Yeah, they were 5th in rushing last year in the league.
Yeah.
They were 9th in passing. I kind of look for that to continue as Hurts is still young and can run. But I think I'm using this comparison, but I don't think that they're on the same level. It's kind of like a Justin Fields situation where as he ages and as he starts to take those hits, he's going to have to become more of a pocket passer and use those legs when he absolutely needs to. But right now, I mean, it works for him. They've got a great offense and they've designed that really well. But it'll be interesting to see if the offense takes a step back or if Hurts is able to continue to progress even with the loss of Steichen.
Well, last season, Hurts set career highs in pretty much every passing category.
Yep.
They've got elite options on the outside with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Dallas Goedert is a rock-solid top 10 tight end. They went 14-3 last season. Where is the room for improvement?
Well, when I say improvement, I think in terms of Jalen Hurts becoming a guy that you can lean on even more. And I think he can improve in the record, not necessarily be the same or better. I actually think they'll take a step back record-wise this year. I don't see them going 14-3. I see it more being like a 13-4 type of season. But I just hope that you continue to see progression in the passing game with Jalen Hurts. He's certainly got the weapons, like you mentioned. You want to, and maybe when I say you want to see him continue to progress, maybe what I really mean is you don't want to see him regress this year with the loss of his offensive coordinator and again, coming off a Super Bowl appearance where he's got his contract, he's got his bag, and it would be really easy to use a lot of outside factors as excuses to not follow up last year's really great season with another one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any stats in front of me, but I remember Jalen Hurts operating that offense in the pocket very fucking well last year. And he still ran a lot, was effective, but that's something like Justin Fields needs to take that next step up. Hopefully he'll do that this year. Matt brought up the coordinators. Interesting fact about that, there's not a great precedent on teams returning to the Super Bowl when they lose both of their coordinators in the offseason to head coaching vacancies. None of the 5 previous teams to make the Super Bowl who have lost both coordinators have not returned following year.
To the Super Bowl?
Sorry?
They haven't returned where?
They haven't, they didn't return to the title game the following year.
Now that is a cherry-picked stat.
Sure is.
Because there aren't many teams that go to back-to-back Super Bowls even if they keep their coordinators.
That's true.
So last season, they're the defending division champions. They went 14-3. This year, their win total set at 11.5. I'm going over that. I think they're a 12-5 team. When I talk about improvement, I don't necessarily think about it in the vein of their overall record because we're, any given Sunday, right? But I think it's more, all right, Hurts set career highs in, like I said, pretty much everything. How much better is he going to get is my question. Or was last season his career year like Lamar Jackson and his MVP year in 2019? Have we seen peak Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, he was responsible for 35 touchdowns. He had 22 passing and 13 rushing. I don't see him rushing for 13 touchdowns again this year, but I do see his passing touchdown numbers going up. So maybe I'm a victim of just being kind of in the trend and not being willing to jump on kind of the new wave of NFL quarterbacks, as mobile as so many of them are. But in my mind, when I think of improvement, I think of him being more of a conventional pocket quarterback. And maybe that's not him. I mean, he had 3,700 yards passing last year. So if he and again, it's his career high. So he should be pushing 4,000 passing yards. Those rushing numbers will probably take a dip a little bit. He had 760 rushing yards last year. So again, to protect him and protect the offense, you hope that they start to focus more on staying in the pocket a little bit more and using his legs a little bit less. But it certainly works for him, and he's still young.
Yeah, they brought in Rashad Penny to, help shoulder the load. They lost Miles Sanders to the Panthers. They also had the draft day trade for Deandre Swift. Deandre Swift is a hell of a player. This is something that Kyle and I have talked about quite a bit, but it seems like he lacks the toughness to play through some injuries that other backs might.
Agreed. Yeah. To your point, Ramey, about Hurts, the NFL declined to change the rules on that. There's still going to be those QB sneaks where they shove Hurts through the line. Still legal play this year. I think he has double digits. Maybe it ain't 13, but 10, 11, 12. I think he still has double digits. Maybe low end.
Gentleman's bet.
Yep. Let's do it.
Okay.
13,
No, so
13, he's going to have 13.
I don't think he'll get to double digits. I think he'll be close, but I don't think he'll get to double digits.
I think he'll have double digits again. And it doesn't appear that there's any way to stop that unless, Bill Belichick figured it out in the offseason or something, because they were doing it all year.
Yeah.
They're working a lot.
And they only played the Patriots one time this year. So even if he did figure it out.
Well, you never know.
If there's somebody that can figure it out, it will be him, especially with that defense. The way that Patriots defense is just good year in and year out, churning of personnel. It doesn't matter. They're still good. But anyway.
I see what you did there, Matt.
I didn't.
Yeah. And he said they could play more than once. It would have to be in the Super Bowl.
Yes.
But there's never been a team that's lost both of their coordinators that went to the Super Bowl and made a return trip. So
that's as good information that I found that somebody else researched and put it somewhere. Just like y'all do. So I'll take the over on that as well, 12-5. I think they'll get over 11.5, win the division. I'm sure there'll be another team that goes to the playoffs from that division. We'll see if it's Dallas or New York for that matter. Washington, I see being at the bottom of the barrel. So,
yeah, probably. But, just like Philadelphia, the Giants, they have a quarterback that they're looking to take the next step. And they gave him $160 million toward that endeavor, $81 million guaranteed at signing. There is a potential out after year 2, though, with only an $18 million dead cap hit. They've got Saquon, who they're waiting on to sign the franchise tag. There's been 6 running backs tagged since 2017. One of them signed an extension, and that was Derrick Henry in 2020. He got 4 years, $50 million. But it does seem like there is, I don't know if the word is collusion or what, but some sort of coordinated effort by the various teams to suppress running back salaries, and it really shows in the franchise tag. The tag amount is down $2.03 million from 2017. It was $12.12 million back then. Now it's $10.09. Every other position group is up over that same time frame.
Yep. Daniel Jones. Yeah, he's the only quarterback that has a contract with a total value of $100 million or more that hasn't thrown for 3,500 yards or 25 touchdowns this season.
Yeah.
So he needs to make a big jump. And Matt mentioned the coach Dable, and I think he's with the right coach to make that jump happen. I agree with Matt on Brian Dable. His time spent in Buffalo, getting Josh Allen to where he is. He's a hell of a quarterback developer.
And you saw improvement just last year from Jones. He led the league in interception percentage, had career best bad throw percentages and on-target percentages. It was interesting. Nearly a third of his passing yards came off of play action. However, he was second to last in 2022 with just 4.9% of his attempts going for 20 or more yards. And part of that was a product of the wide receiving core.
Yeah. Hopefully that happens. They re-signed Shepard and Slayton. They added Paris Campbell and Jamison Crowder to the room, and they traded for Darren Waller. That guy could stay healthy.
Yeah.
Watch out.
They retained Isaiah Hodgins, too, who made an impact for them after coming over from the Bills.
Yeah, I agree. Daniel Jones needs to take a step forward this year with his passing. They were 26th in passing yards last year. Now they were 4th in rushing yards, so they ran the hell out of the ball. But especially if you have Saquon holding out potentially, they're going to need to rely on that passing game a lot more than they did last year. And you hope that Daboll can get Daniel Jones to continue to take steps forward, but $40 million a year is a lot for a quarterback that was not in the top half in passing yards last year. Now, he didn't use his feet smartly. Smartly, is that a word? He was good at using his feet.
Putting those educated feet to work.
Yeah. But not just with his contract, but just about every NFL contract is a 2-year contract, and then it's a we'll see. But it's, I guess, would you rather have Daniel Jones at $40 million a year, or would you rather have a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo at $22, $23 million a year and be able to spend that extra money on some weapons or your defense?
I think Jimmy G gets that number because everybody knows what he is. They gave Daniel Jones $40 million because of what he could be. I'm not saying he could be the best QB in the league, but I think his ceiling is maybe 7th best. And the 7th best QB in the league can win you some games.
Sure can. We forgot about Jalen Hyatt. They drafted him out of Tennessee, and he did some crazy shit down there in the SEC as a wide receiver. So the only thing I really know about him is he's a great route runner. So that could definitely help Daniel Jones too. If you're where you're supposed to be when you need to be, this will work out.
Yeah, they've got a meat grinder to end the year. They've got 2 of their last 3 are against Philly. So
Yeah.
they're really going to get to see just how good they are to end the year and going towards the playoffs.
Could decide the division, maybe, if the Giants are. If Saquon's there, I'll say it could decide the decision. Or decide the division, I should say. Decide the decision. Yes, Kyle. You dumb son of a bitch.
Are you reading my notes?
No.
No. Okay.
No, he read mine, though.
I scanned through them yesterday just to see about your back in the day to make sure I wasn't doing the same one.
Yeah. So, as of when this podcast is released, it'll be a day after the deadline for Saquon to sign an extension. Monday, the 17th of July, is the deadline for franchise players to sign a long-term extension. What do you guys think happens with him? Do you think he signs? Do you think they get a deal done, or do you think he goes on the franchise tag this year, or do you think he sits out until midway through the season?
I don't think he's going to sit out. If they don't come to an agreement by the deadline, I could even see him missing a couple weeks of camp. But when things count for real, I think he'll be there.
Yeah. I'm hoping a contingent of, Daniel Jones and some veteran players there, maybe, to have a meeting, because they really do have a lot of talent to try and make a run, to make the playoffs and do some damage. They got some talent defensively too.
Yeah, I think if he misses games, that's bad for them because it's going to leave Daniel Jones too exposed.
Yeah, he had 1,300 yards last year.
Yeah, it was best season.
Yeah, his best season. I think he had more yards last year than the previous 2 combined. So they need him.
He stayed healthy too for the most part. He had been kind of beat up the previous years. But Matt, I thought you brought up a really good point earlier about running backs and the fact that they just have become such a disposable commodity in terms of how the NFL looks at them. Do you think something needs to be done with the players' union and the NFL where you either have a special pool for running backs to pay them early, because the running back on the rookie contract, their shelf life isn't what other players are, and it seems like by the time they get to that point where they can sign their big contract, they've worn a lot of tread off the tires and they just don't have as much left. So would you propose something like that, or would you look at having a year or 2 out for running backs out of the draft, an option to opt out and become a free agent earlier? Or how do you think you would fix that?
I really don't know. And I understand it from, the business and strategic standpoint, right? Take Jonathan Taylor. He's going to be a free agent after this year. Well, I know we've run him pretty hard, and I bet they ride the shit out of him this year. You franchise him next year, and then you let him walk, and you draft somebody, next year to be his replacement. Pick some dude in the 2nd or 3rd round who seems like he's going to be pretty good. Ride it till the wheels fall off and let him go. Wide receivers are really productive, a lot of times even into their age 31 season. By the time a running back hits 27, teams are looking to exit.
Yeah. And that's the NFL evolved. It became this big, huge passing league now, and the game's different. And it does suck. They don't have the chance to get their back like the wide receivers do and other positions. And I like your idea, Ray, where there is some type of built out for them where they could do that. Because I guess if you're a high school player right now, and you're somebody that's multidimensional, you play receiver and running back, you're a freak athlete. You've got to play on both sides of the ball. And at some point, you got to be saying, well, I'm definitely not going to be a running back. I'll be a wide receiver. I can make more money. I can play longer.
Yeah.
So at some point, there might be a shortage.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, go ahead, Ramey.
Oh, I was just going to say these things are cyclical too, right? Like it may not be. I mean, it does seem like it's never going to be the way it was, where you just have that bell cow running back. But I think it could swing back where teams start to rely on the running game a little bit more, and I think there are certain teams that still do. I didn't mean to cut you off, Matt, but one other point I wanted to make before we move on is, and we can talk about this after you make your point, Matt. But has the franchise tag outlived its usefulness? Does it need to go away? Not just for running backs, for in the NFL in general.
I think the franchise tag can be useful as if it's used as it was intended. It's supposed to be to give the the player in the team a little bit of extra time to reach a long-term deal. But now it seems like it's treated more as, all right, we just got you for another year and you can't leave. This is what you're going to get paid. Take it or retire.
Right. Yeah, it's not. It gives them a raw deal. It sucks. And yeah, it seems like a punishment almost. I don't know. And
look what happened to Kirk Cousins in Washington. Got franchised twice, and the team had no intention on signing him to a long-term deal.
Yeah.
They just didn't have anyone to replace him with, so they made him stay.
Yeah, maybe rather than getting rid of the franchise tag, maybe you look at tweaking the math on it. You make it a little bit more penal for the team. I know currently it's what the franchise tag, the exclusive tag is average of the top 5 players at that position.
Yep.
Maybe you bump it to top 2, top 3, and then I know if you continue to do it, it's like 120% of that amount the following year. Maybe you make it 150%. So it's still available, but you really want to you're going to reward that player for the year that they're under the tag.
And why
their tagged year, they're getting paid.
Yeah.
If Jonathan Taylor wants $30 million guaranteed, you can tag him for the next 2 years for $10 million and $12 million. Like there's $8 million in savings. Or you can just say, screw it, and I'll pay these 2 dudes $4 million each to give me the equivalent output that you do.
Yeah.
And why? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and with the tag going year to year, if Jonathan Taylor blows out his knee in week 2 and doesn't end up being the player that he was prior to, at the end of the year, you say, hey, sorry about your luck, but good luck to you. Best in your future endeavors.
Now that I think about it, it's almost like at running back, the NFL they're mirroring what a lot of Major League Baseball teams do with their platoons. You've got your strong side guy who handles first and second down. You've got, your other dude who handles passing, be it third down, second and long, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, with the evolution of the game, that's just kind of how it was going to go. These running backs that were just typically the Emmitt Smiths of the world that didn't catch a lot of passes could, but didn't catch it. That was not their game. They just ran them right up the middle between the tackles. And now you got these multidimensional running backs that can run and catch, or they specialize in one or the other. So yeah, everybody splits the running back room salary, and it sucks. It sucks. But if I'm a kid, I'm going to be a wide receiver.
Oh yeah. Well, Giants win total is set at 7.5. I'm going over that number. I think they're at 9-18.
Yeah, I got them. I won't say comfortably over, but also over as well. I see their defense improve this year as well. I'll go 10-7.
So I like this, but we actually have a chance to disagree here. I think that they do go over, but I think they go barely over. I think they're an 8-9 team. I think they take a step back from last year. I don't know that Daniel Jones is the guy. Hope for Giants fans that he does take that next step, but that's just so much money for a guy that hasn't shown yet that he's a top 10 quarterback. So can he get there? Absolutely. Will he get there? I don't know that I'd be willing to bet $160 million on it. So I think that they still go over on the win total, but I think they're an 8-9 team.
you've got to remember too, the contract they gave him. That's a little bit, I mean, it's a generous contract, but that's going rate for an NFL quarterback. Typically you're looking, 35 million, 40 million.
I mean, obviously, you don't know the answer to this, but do you think if they would have came to him with a 4-year, or even let's say they did a 5-year, $160 million contract, or a 4-year, 120, where the average annual value is a little bit, you don't think he would sign that?
Depends on who his agent is.
It's true. And I know they were under pressure because they knew they had to, if they weren't going to sign him, they were going to have to tag him and risk losing Saquon to free agency. So that's probably part of the reason why they overpaid a little bit, so that they could use the tag on Saquon and keep their backfield intact for this year. But I still think it's a lot of money. But again, to your point, in 2 years, if they want to cut bait, they can. But then there's a lot more questions about who's going to be the quarterback in New York.
Or maybe they view it as they've got a 2-year window.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
Next up, I'll go with the Washington Commanders. Last season they were 8-1. So again, not under 500. The quarterback carousel that's going on since Kirk Cousins left in, when was that? 2019? No. Yeah, 2019 sounds right.
11?
No, 2017 is when he left. It just hasn't worked. 11. It hasn't worked out. I don't see it improving much this year either with Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, I can speak from experience here. If you're relying on Jacoby Brissett to be your starting quarterback and make it to the playoffs, you're probably not going to make it to the playoffs. He's a guy that can come in for 2 or 3 games, and he showed it last year in Cleveland. In short spurts, he's a fantastic backup and a fill-in. But over the course of the season, he doesn't have as quick a release as you'd like to see in a starting quarterback, and he seems to stare down his receivers at times, and as a result, he turns the ball over a lot as he continues to play through the season.
And Eric Bieniemy, the new OC there, can he make either of them serviceable this year? And maybe at least from a fantasy, are they relevant in fantasy?
I don't think so. You guys are the fantasy experts.
I mean, Sam Howell is a little bit more mobile than Jacoby Brissett, but he only started 1 game last year. I remember he was a pretty well-regarded prospect when he was there at North Carolina. I think he had like an awesome freshman year or something like that. I'm not really enthused about either one of them, honestly. Bieniemy, he's going to start to call plays. I think a lot of what they're going to try to do is going to mirror what Kansas City does, in concept, especially with the running game. They've got some pretty good wide receivers. Terry McLaurin, he's improved each of his 4 seasons in the league. They brought in Jahan Dotson last year. He had 7 touchdowns as a rookie. Curtis Samuel is really, really versatile. He's like a poor man's Deebo Samuel. So there's some talent there. I think overall, Ron Rivera probably needs to make the playoffs to keep his job.
Yeah, that sucks too, because I want Bieniemy to get more than one year. I mean, I guess he could stay or whatever, the new head coach, if that were to happen. But I think Bieniemy's a pretty good coach. And Matt's right, they're wide receiver room. That's a nice trio they got there.
Yeah, it's funny, Matt. One of my notes was, is it a make or break season for Rivera? And everything you see about him, it's just, he's a super nice guy. Players love to play for him, but he just seems like a guy that's a 7-9, 8-8, 9-7 type of coach, a year in and year out. I mean, obviously, when you have Cam Newton, things are easier, and I think Bieniemy is probably going to experience this a little bit as well. You're not going to have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce to draw up plays for. While they do have a nice receiving room, the NFL is about quarterbacks, and if you don't have a quarterback, I can again speak from experience. If you don't have a quarterback, you're not going to go very far. with the recent ownership change, I think that there's an opportunity to clean house. And I think you're spot on, Matt. If they don't make the playoffs, I think that they'll get rid of the coaching staff, and wouldn't be shocked if things don't go well early in the season. If you see some interesting decisions as far as availability for players, because there's a couple of quarterbacks in the draft next year that I'm sure they would love to be able to get their hands on.
Yeah. Drake May or Caleb Williams out of USC. I'd be happy with either of them.
Yeah.
I quickly Googled Ron Rivera's coaching record. You're pretty much spot on, Ramey. Including the postseason, he's a 101, 95, and 2 for a 515 winning percentage. So nice
He's
job.
Jeff Fisher.
Yeah, he's 7-9. Jeff Fisher.
It feels like he's Jeff Fisher, but has not had the opportunities that Jeff Fisher had as far as talent. It seems like, and for whatever reason, other than those Panthers, those few years where they were making deep playoff runs and going to the Super Bowl, he's never been on a team where you think that he's underachieved as a coach. Again, seems like a leader of men. I know that's kind of cliche, but seems like a guy that people really like to play for. But it just seems like he's never had the opportunity to coach a team with a talent level outside of those Panthers teams that would make him a consistent winner. So I don't put that record completely on him. It's probably unfair too, but I think you mentioned, Matt, a few weeks ago, you're only as good as your players. So coaching is important, but you can only go as far as your players will take you.
I think too, though, you say, there's no season where it felt like they really underachieved. I'd counter that and say, I can't really remember any seasons where it felt like they overachieved. I think he coaches to the talent level of his team, but there's just nothing there to go that next step.
I would agree with that. I'd maybe push back a little bit, because when I was starting to look at stuff for this week, I was surprised. I'd forgotten that they were 8-1. I for some reason I thought they were like a 5 or 6 win team. Taylor Heineke and Carson Wentz as your quarterbacks, and you still managed to have a 500 season. I think he did a pretty good job, but I'm not going to go out and say he's made them 4 or 5 wins better than what they should have been. Their defense was really good, and I know that's his focus. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Chase Young too. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option. He's been injured a ton, so I can't say that I blame him. But speaking of make or break years, it's a make or break year for Chase Young.
Yeah, it is. I bet they didn't foresee that when they picked him too a few years ago, not picking up his 5th-year option. But yeah, he's missed 22 games so far in his career. That's a lot. That being said, that D line is one of the most underrated D lines in the league. They got a hell of a stack: Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Darren Payne, and Chase Young. They decided to pay Darren Payne. They gave him 4 years, $90 million in the offseason. So Chase Young will land somewhere. Maybe this will be a learning experience for him, but for whatever reason, they don't want to keep him.
Well, I mean, you want players around that are going to stay on the field.
Yeah. And I mean,
availability is the best ability.
Their defense kept them in a lot of games last year, and that's why they were able to win 8 games and tie a game for that matter. But they're young. That line's young. They're all like 27 or younger, 26 or younger.
Yeah, they've got a win total this year of 6.5. I'm going under that number. I think they're a 5-12 team.
I got to agree with you. I will also take the under on that one. They're going to struggle to win football games. No matter who the quarterback is. It's going to be a tough, long year for them. They'll most likely finish 4th in the division.
Yeah, they do get the benefit of that last place schedule, so they play teams like the Bears and the Cardinals. But I also don't think that they'll go over that win total. I see them being as like a 4-13 type team and being in the running for one of those top 2 picks. based on how they've done at number 2, you sure hope that they're bad enough to get to number 1, because their last 2 number 2 picks between Chase Young and RG3 haven't panned out.
Yeah, their schedule, like you said, that their 4th place schedule, they got a 7-game stretch between week 7 and 13, where 6 of the games are against playoff teams from last year. So it's not going to be easy, and their bye is late as fuck, week 14. So,
well, the whole NFC East, they're playing the AFC East this year and the NFC West. So it's not like there's a whole lot of gimmies in either division there. You could say the Cardinals are going to be trash, but, if Stafford is healthy, Kupp stays healthy, the Rams are going to be decent, and we know what the AFC East is like. So when you're a middling team like the Commanders, and even though you're playing a 4th place schedule, like some of those 4th place teams aren't all that awful.
You're 100% right.
That is true, because 4th place team in the AFC East
was the Patriots.
The
Jets.
And I expect them to be better, of course, this year. And lastly, we have the Dallas Cowboys. Finished 2nd in the division last year behind the Eagles. They were 12-5. I don't like talking about the Cowboys. I've never been a Cowboys fan. Started, as a young boy watching football in the 90s. It was I always rooted for the 49ers or somebody else. I did not like the Cowboys, still don't. They have the 5th toughest schedule based on opponents' winning percentage from last year. I know Matt doesn't take that, believe that I didn't really care about that stat. I don't either. I just thought to throw it in. 1-6 before their weeks 1 through 6 before their 7th round bye. I'm fucking up, fellas.
Let me tell you about this stat that I don't care about.
But weeks 1 through 6 is tough. Before their bye, they played both New York teams, Pats, 49ers, Chargers, and they play the Cardinals. They'll probably get a win there, but that's a tough schedule to start out.
Yeah, it is. They come out of the gate hot, and I'm really surprised, Kyle, that you don't like the Cowboys, because they took Michigan guys with their first 2 draft picks.
They did. I like that. I love that. Yeah, Steelmaker and Mozzie Smith in the middle. He's going to be a great DT for them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've never really liked the Cowboys, and I don't know why, but I'm kind of high on them this year. I think that they're going to be good. I think they made some good decisions. They were able to get Stephon Gilmore for a song from the Colts. I think it was a 5th round pick. They drafted Deuce Vaughn late out of Kansas State. I actually was at the Big 12 championship game. Had a trip to Dallas last wintertime, and he's a stud. I think he's going to fit in with Tony Pollard. And I think they still have a potential of maybe re-signing Zeke if things dry up out there on the running back market. So they're going to run the ball. Mike McCarthy wants to run the ball. He's calling plays this year. I think Dak has something to prove this year, whether he's the guy or just a guy. I think that they're going to be good. The defense is good. Dak's got weapons. They're going to run the hell out of the ball. I'm high on the Cowboys.
Yeah. See, Brandon Cook's going there, and getting traded from the Texans is going to be huge. He's a field stretcher for the teams that he's played for. He's posted several 1,000-yard receiving seasons. I think they are going to be good. I still think Philadelphia is going to take the division, and they're going to finish, in 2nd again. Is Tony Pollard going to recreate what he did last year? Is he going to be, now that he's, I'll just say, the man on the running back committee, can he do it again? He is good. He's cool to watch.
He is. I think what made him so good last year was his efficiency, and if you give him more carries and more touches, that efficiency is likely going to go down. So while they might be able to give him more work, you've got to figure out like, all right, where is the break point on this where, we're getting the diminishing returns.
And I think that's where they were smart. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, it just, Kyle mentioned Brandon Cooks going there. I think that's a really good thing because now CeeDee Lamb has somebody legit opposite him. Michael Gallup came back last year from a torn ACL. He's got to do something this year, or he's likely going to be looking for another profession. I do like that Deuce Vaughn pick, though. He was a lot of fun to watch there at Kansas State, and he's a little guy at 5'6", 172 pounds. So how much work is he going to get? I think he's second string, so he's going to get some run. Let's see what they can do with it.
Yeah, they were fourth in points last year and fifth in points against. So they didn't have to do a lot, but I feel like they addressed needs through the draft and in free agency and through trades that they didn't take a step back from last year. And while I agree with you, Kyle, I don't think that they're going to win the division. I think they're going to challenge for it. Their schedule's tough. We've touched on the schedule. It's tough. I just feel really good about these Cowboys, and I kind of hate that I do.
I know. I feel the same way. Even the end of the season, they got playoff teams: Seattle, Philadelphia, at Buffalo, at Miami. They have a tough schedule in and out. And on paper, all their weapons, all their defensive guys like Trayvon Diggs and Micah fucking Parsons. That guy is a beast. I love watching him play. I won't watch through Red Zone, of course. I'm not watching the Cowboys game, But he's an electric fucking player that Matt has on his fantasy team. I would fucking love to have on mine.
Well, you're going to be watching one Cowboys game this year because they play the Lions late in the season.
That's right. Oh, well, yeah, Saturday night game. Something, I think it is.
Something like that. They've got a win total of 9.5. I'm going over that number. I think they're a 10-7 team. I think they've got a 12-5 ceiling, though.
I think they hit that ceiling. I think they're a 12-5 team easy. I think that, again, they could challenge for the division. I think at the worst case, I think they're an 11-win team. The schedule does worry me, but I think that they're going to be really good this year.
Yeah, the schedule worries me too. Even if the offense stumbles a little bit, at least initially, before their week 7 bye, the defense is going to keep them in games and even win them a couple games.
Yeah, I mean, you got a defensive backfield of Trayvon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore. Now he's an older Stephon Gilmore, but if he's not your number one cornerback, that's kind of scary to think about.
Yeah, we'll see what he has left in the tank. Won a Defensive Player of the Year, 2019? Where was that? You mentioned their points against, so their 8th best yards allowed. They were 8th in best pass yards allowed at 200.9, and they brought in Stephon Gilmore. I expect that to stay the same or even better. And then we touched on Mozzie Smith a second ago, Go Blue, and Luke Schoonmaker. They took first and second round, respectively. That's going to be good because they were 22nd in rush yards allowed last year. So they needed somebody up in the middle, and he's going to be the guy. I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be able to contribute right away on a rotational basis. But look out for him next year to really increase snaps on the field.
Yeah, I think with the switch to McCarthy calling the offense, I think they're going to throw the ball more, but overall have a slower tempo.
Could be.
I'd look for Dak to get back to, somewhere close to 600 attempts, maybe 575 attempts. They do want to run the ball, but again, Tony Pollard was an efficiency guy. Deuce Vaughn is little. Like, Deuce Vaughn isn't somebody you're going to give the ball 15 times a game to.
Yeah.
And we'll see if Schoonmaker can fill the loss of Dalton Schultz. He was a solid top 10 tight end in the league. Later, probably 8 to 10, I'll say. He went to the Texans. So Schoonmaker, I love watching him in Michigan during Michigan games. He was great.
I mean, we already kind of have, but let's talk about how we think the division is going to finish out. I can go ahead and start. I think the Eagles are going to repeat. I think the Cowboys are going to push them. I don't think they're going to overtake them. So I think the Eagles, the Cowboys, it's pretty much what happened last year. But I think the Giants and the Commanders take a step back. So I think the order of finish is the same. I think the Cowboys maybe win another game. I think the Giants take a tiny step back, and the Commanders, I think, probably lose or win 3 or 4 less games than they did last year.
I agree with that order of finish. Just I think the Giants are going to do a little bit better. They're going to get just over 500. They'll be in the conversation for a playoff spot, maybe not entirely because of merit, but also influenced by the overall, we'll call it, weakness of the NFC. I think the Commanders will be picking top 5 in the draft next year.
Definitely. Same order. Pretty much, I agree with Matt more than Ramey just on the Giants there. I think they're still going to be a game or two better than last year with the weapons they've added, and I think their defense takes a step up. But they were decent. They were pretty good last year. That wraps up our division preview for the NFC East, and I'm going to go have a cigarette. Now it's time for our weekly 6 pick.
Yes, here we go.
I've been stumbling all fucking afternoon. Like, Matt's just going to cut me out. So it's going to be like, was Kyle even in the fucking show?
He's just going to cut you.
Now it is time for our weekly 6.
Ow. Oh, shit. Third time's the charm.
Welcome back to the Stone Down Sports Podcast. We're in the Pick Sixer segment of our episode. Today, our topic for our Pick Sixer is our favorite sports coaches. I'll start first in no particular order. Buddy Ryan, football coach from the 70s and 90s.
Did he coach in the 80s as well, or just the 70s?
70s through the 90s. He was a defensive line coach for Minnesota when they had the Purple People Eaters. Then was famous for going to Chicago as the defensive coordinator there, and leading them to a Super Bowl with one of the best statistical defenses ever. Number 2, Scotty Bowman, Canadian hockey coach. Ton of wins, awesome coach. Has a record 9 Stanley Cups, 5 with the Canadians, 1 with the Penguins, and 3 with my Detroit Red Wings. Had a career spanning over 4 decades. He was pretty innovative what he did. I fell in love with him when he was obviously with the Red Wings. Next on my list, Tom Izzo, MSU basketball coach. I know you're probably all saying, wait a minute, Kyle, you're a blue guy. Why would you be having Tom Izzo? It's because he's a hell of a coach. I've watched him a lot just from watching Big Ten basketball through the years. He's a local guy from the UP in Iron Mountain, Michigan. He's just been a powerhouse there since he got there in 95. He's made a record 20. What the fuck are you laughing about?
How in the hell is Iron Mountain local?
Michigan. Dude, we're worldwide. It's fucking local. There's people in Korea and Sri Lanka listening to our stuff in French subtitles stuff.
A lot of Koreans watch the French subtitles.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. A lot of French Koreans over there. I don't know. He's made 25 consecutive NCAA tournaments, second only to Kansas. And he won a title, his only title in 2000, with some local guys, the Flintstones. Next on my list, Larry Brown, NBA coach, coached the Pistons to their most recent championship in 2004 with a 5-game sweep against the Lakers. He's currently, didn't know this, an assistant coach on Penny Hardaway's staff in Memphis. Had no clue. Couple stats about him. Only coach in history to win a championship in college and a championship in the NBA. He's also the only coach to coach 2 different teams in the same season.
Also the only coach ever to manage to achieve a 5-game sweep in the NBA Finals.
That's why I said 5-game sweep on purpose, because it's a local Detroit thing that it was a 5-game sweep, because that one in LA don't count.
Local to Detroit or local to Michigan?
Local to Detroit Pistons fans. Next on my list, John Beilein, basketball coach. He was with Michigan recently there on their run to the Final Four twice in 13 and 18. I was devastated the day that I was driving to work and got the notification on my phone that he was leaving to go to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I knew that right away that was a mistake, and it definitely turned out to be. He resigned before the end of the season. He's now a player development advisor for Pistons. And last on my list is a fictional head coach, Patches O'Houlihan, from the movie Dodgeball with Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller. He taught the essential 5 Ds to avoid being hit by balls. Do you guys remember what they are?
Duck.
Dodge,
duck, dip, dive, and dodge again. He was played fantastically by Rip Torn, the late Rip Torn. Super funny guy and actor. Next on the list is none, because I'm through. I will pass her over to Mr. Rape.
Thanks, Kyle.
You're welcome, sir.
That was a really good list. I feel like, I mean,
Thank
clearly
you.
it's your favorite coaches, so I totally get that they're local. I also felt like you had like 12 of them for some reason.
Nice.
Well, it was a nice
Yeah.
dissertation there on Buddy Ryan.
Yeah, I do have history with him. So, all right, Randy.
My pick Sixer, little more diverse, but still you'll see a theme. My number 6 is Phil Jackson. Won 11 NBA titles, both with the Chicago Bulls and the Los Angeles Lakers. Really, with him and Tex Winter, with the triangle offense, really kind of dominated the 90s and in the early 2000s. But obviously having Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, Shaquille O'Neal, and Kobe Bryant certainly helps. But always was a coach that I respected and admired, even though he cost my Pacers some run in the late 90s. So my number 5 is Lou Holtz, Notre Dame head coach from 1986 to 1996, won a national title in 1988, often imitated, never duplicated. This was a really good coach, was able to make some changes as far as the recruiting processes up at Notre Dame and get players like Tony Rice to come play and brought them back to relevance. So he's my number 5. My number 4 favorite coach is Bobby Slick Leonard. Was the head coach of the ABA Pacers back from 1968 until 1980 and won 3 ABA titles with the Pacers. Really was instrumental in keeping the Pacers in Indianapolis in the late 70s, early 80s, and helping them transition into the NBA as one of those 4 ABA teams that made it to the NBA. And then even after concluding his coaching career was the radio color guy for the Pacers, and was always entertaining with his signature phrase. You guys know it?
No.
Boom, baby.
He came up with that?
Yeah, he made it up all himself.
Nice.
Yeah. So my number 3 is Tony Dungy, head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. You can't roll your eyes, and I mean, it's favorite coaches. It's not like I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, Lou Holtz. I don't know about that one.
It's not even that, dude. Like, just I'm tired of seeing his mug on billboards and just how he's like worshipped around here. So it's not surprising to me that he's on your list. But
He's a good Christian man,
yeah, see,
and
I don't give two shits about that.
and he was the coach that brought the only Super Bowl title to Indianapolis. So that is a big reason why he is on my list. Tony Dungy. Number 2, Joe Madden, manager for the Chicago Cubs from 2015 to 2019. Brought the only world championship in 108 years at the time to the city of the north side of Chicago, not the city of Chicago, but the Cubs won the World Series under his tenure. And even before he was with the Cubs, when he was with the Rays, I feel like he was, really innovative and personable, and just a guy that really made the game interesting and found different ways to make things interesting for his players. So my number 2 is Joe Madden, mostly because the Cubs won the World Series.
So do you think, just through some of his techniques, we'll call it, you think there were times where he kind of like outsmarted himself and made things more difficult than they need to be, but got bailed out by the talent on the team?
I do, and I think that that's the reason why he's no longer the manager in Chicago. I think he relied on the analytics a lot, and I know that he's not the only one to do that, but he seemed to be one of the trailblazers to do that, especially with shifts and things like that. But he's a very good manager, but you're right. I think he was a victim of thinking he was the smartest guy in the room maybe a little too often, and to your point, outsmarting himself, and that's why he's no longer with the Cubs and no longer managing a Major League Baseball team right now. So that brings me to my number 1, the General, Robert Montgomery Knight, head coach of Indiana University basketball from 1971 until he was fired in the year 2000. 3 national championships in 1976, 1981, and 1987. Just was a huge personality, a huge part of my growing up. You were either an IU guy or a Purdue guy growing up in the state of Indiana with Bob Knight and Gene Cady. Made a great rivalry, and didn't hurt that they were 2 teams that were typically in the mix, both for the Big Ten championship and in the national conversation as well until towards the end there. So that is my list. Bob Knight, number 1.
Bob Knight. He was so fiery. God, he was good though. He didn't know his shit, but yeah, that. Let's see. It's chair throwing incident, the choking. What's his name? I can't remember.
Neil Reed.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have picked Gene Cady because I respect him, and he's a little guy.
I'm not knocking you
because he was born in the United States.
That 30 for 30 about Bob Knight, or I think it was 30 for 30, but it was excellent. It was good. Did you mention when for Joe Madden? I must have misunderstood you, but you said like it brought a championship to North Chicago, but like not all of Chicago.
The north side of Chicago.
So when a Chicago Cubs win, it's only considered the north side of Chicago won the championship because
they're located on the north side of Chicago, so that is where the championship was brought. If the Chicago White Sox are on the south side of Chicago, so if I were talking about Ozzie Guillen, for example, I would have said he would have brought a championship to the south side of Chicago. I'm not saying that you have to live on the north side of Chicago to be a Cubs fan. I was just referencing their geographical location.
Oh, I understand. I don't. I keep it more simple. I go, it's Chicago. They call it the Chicago Cubs or the Chicago White Sox. The city of fucking Chicago won a championship, not just a fucking northern neighborhood of it.
For me, number 6, Lou Piniella. Won a World Series with the Reds in 1990s, 3-time manager of the year. Just had a real fiery and funny personality. Some of his on-field arguments are hilarious, and he's got quite a few post-game interviews from his office that are worth a watch. Number 5, Jim Leyland. He won a World Series in 1997 with the Florida Marlins. He also led the Tigers to 2 World Series in 2006 and 2012. Was kind of known for going down in the tunnel between innings to have a heater real quick. Number 4, Wayne Fontes, the last head coach to win a playoff game with the Detroit Lions. Enough said with that. Number 3, Ramey, you also mentioned him, Phil Jackson. I think he was the best coach ever at managing personalities because there were so many big personalities and egos on the teams that he led. And he got them all to play cohesively. Doesn't mean everybody was, buddy and grabbing beers after practice, but, they were able to coexist for the greater good. Number 2, Lou Brown, manager of the Cleveland Indians in the movie Major League. He went from a mechanic's garage to the show in about 15 minutes. Great movie. Number 1 for me, the GOAT coach, Bill Belichick. I think he's the greatest coach in the history of North American sports. Definitely on the Mount Rushmore of greatest coaches of all time with, names like Scotty Bowman and Phil Jackson, other motherfuckers that coached well and were successful.
I'm shocked that you had Belichick number 1.
Well, I like to surprise you guys, keep you on your toes.
I liked your Pinella pick. He was a guy that I considered because he was a manager of the Cubs as well. But I agree. He was a really entertaining guy and really good at his job all the way back. And he was manager of the Yankees in the 80s.
Yeah, he was. He'd been around for a while. He was managed Seattle for a while too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I specifically have a memory of him like picking up a base during an argument with an ump or something, and maybe I don't know if it was
Wouldn't
him
surprise
or not, but I
me.
think
Lloyd
it was him.
McClendon did that when he was with the Pirates. He took the case and just walked away.
I do remember Lloyd McClendon.
Lloyd McClendon also hit a sausage racer with a baseball bat in Milwaukee.
Nice. He has very healthy outlets for his anger.
Yes. So, trying to sound too dumb, what's a sausage racer? And why does he come over and visit you?
So you don't know about the sausage race in Milwaukee?
No, never been.
Oh. So because Milwaukee is a big beer, brats, and hot dog kind of place, they I think it's during the 7th inning stretch, they have 4 guys dress up in basically hot dog / sausage outfits,
Wieners,
and they race around the outside of the stadium. And while they were running by the Pittsburgh Pirates dugout one day, Lloyd McClendon knocked the guy down.
Wow. Did he need medical attention?
No, it was a savage beating. McClendon did 2.5 years and counted for it.
Nice.
People were appalled because he ate the victim.
And he was delicious.
Right. And that wraps up our Pick Sixer for this week. Top 6 favorite coaches. Please comment, let us know what your 6 favorite are, or if you agree or disagree with mostly Ramey's. Thanks for watching. There you go.
All right. Now it's time for our back in the day replay, a look back at sports history or history in general. Matt's going back in time right now.
I'm going on another bombing.
You've bombed plenty today, Kyle.
That's true. I agree.
Matt, what do you got for us this week?
July 17th, 1965, Dave DeBusschere hits a single off Benny Daniels, his first and only Major League Baseball hit. He then switched to basketball, where he won 2 NBA championships with the Knicks, and in 1996 was named as one of the top 50 players in NBA history. He is one of only 13 athletes to play in the NBA and Major League Baseball.
Kyle, would you like to go?
Yeah, mine is also July 17th, but a little bit earlier, 1941. New York Yankee Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak ends. I think it's unbreakable. I don't think anybody's going to ever break that. It's nuts. During those 56 games, he had 91 base hits at 223 at-bats. He hit 408, 15 home runs, 55 RBIs. He also scored 56 runs, tying the same number of games. And his plate discipline was fucking sick. He only struck out 5 times of those 223 at bats. And right after that streak, he went on another one of 15. So if he'd have gotten a hit, he'd have had 72 games. That could
That'd be
insane. Insane. He was voted most valuable player of the year, beating out Ted Williams, who had over for 400 that year. So you could see why the writers, what they valued over that streak is unbreakable. I do not see it happening. Ramey?
Well, this week in 1970, the Pittsburgh Pirates played their first game in Three Rivers Stadium. They played there until 2001 when it was replaced by PNC Park. And what is it called today? It's called something different today, isn't it?
I think it's now PNC Park.
No, it's PNC Park.
Okay.
It was just on my
Okay.
What was the Three Rivers Stadium named after?
Well, funny you ask.
Allegheny and Issaquah or
Mahogany. I forget.
The Macarena?
Mahogany. It's where the two rivers converge to form the mighty Ohio River. And this is one of the, kind of ushered in the era of multi-use stadiums. I think of a Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati. Just awful looking stadiums. But
that in Philly?
Yeah. Both football, baseball stadiums. And it was actually imploded after it closed in 2001. The Steelers moved to Heinz Field and the Pirates moved to PNC Park as we ushered in an era of outrageous spending and public funding for ballparks and moving away from the mixed use parks. So that's my back in the day replay.
I always hated watching those games and NFL games in September, and you can see the diamond there and shit. There's dirt and stuff, and how that was for a football player with all the different surfaces, dirt, the grass and stuff. How much of that was a pain in the ass for them? It always looks shitty on TV.
Yeah, and I mean the vet in particular, just the divots and the bumps, because it's basically AstroTurf carpet on top of concrete. So definitely have made some improvements in player safety as far as the playing surfaces are concerned. So that wraps it up for the back in the day replay. Be sure to comment. Let us know what you think about our back in the day replays. And if you have any for yourself, be sure to let us know and we'd be happy to talk about it.
Well, that wraps up today's episode. We appreciate you sticking with us. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Any feedback is welcome. We'd love to engage with you, shoot the shit, whatever it may be. A big thank you to all of our subscribers as well as our sponsor, Rocky's Pizza. Kyle, do you have words you want to say before we end this?
Nope.
Awesome. Thanks for those insights. Ramey, take us home.
Well, boys, it was a pleasure as always. Like Matt said, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on all the socials, www.stonedonsportspodcast.com. It's 3 W's. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.